Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people who are improving the lives of others all over the world. They do this locally, globally, and digitally. The they in this regard is the set of people who belong to Rotary International, Rotarians, as we call ourselves. Rotary is a service organization. It's been around about 120 years, and it is distributed among 1.2 million people in 36,000 clubs, all of whom are excited to be able to find ways to improve their communities near and far. Our club is both online and asynchronous, so it is a highly flexible model for being part of a group that gets together in order to celebrate the really, really cool and interesting things people are doing to benefit society as a whole. And so if you want to learn more about us, go to rotary.cool. And if you want to learn more about Rotary, go to rotary.org. We hope that you'll take a look and take an interest, and that you will be inspired by the kind of stories that you encounter here to be able to make a difference in the lives of others where you are as well. Part of what we do as a club is to highlight a really amazing breadth of stories in terms of what people are doing to make the world better. And in this case, we're going to be talking specifically about the oceans and the kind of partnership that can happen between nonprofit organizations to find really creative ways to address things that might be a very big problem. As always, you can read the bios for our speakers by pausing and going down on the podcast page or YouTube page or up on our Rotary.cool page and find out more about the people that we've got joining us. But I will jump right in and welcome Meaghan and Nam to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. It is great to have you with us. Meaghan, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rushton. Illegal fishing, protecting our oceans. Okay, some of you might be asking, why do you even care? Well, the ocean is the Earth's life support system. It gives us the air we breathe. You can thank the ocean for the oxygen and every other breath you take. It gives us the food we eat, providing essential daily protein for 3.5 billion, that is with a B, people. That's nearly half the world's population. And it acts as the Earth's climate control system. It absorbs 90% of excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases and absorbs 30% of human-caused carbon emissions. So in short, no ocean, no us. And it is in trouble. We've lost 35% of the Earth's mangroves in just 2 decades. A quarter of all marine mammal species are in danger of going extinct, along with 6 out of the world's 7 sea turtle species. And coral reefs, the nurseries of the ocean, where a quarter of all marine life lives, are bleaching and breaking down under stress, being destroyed. Now, you might ask, what causes all this? One major contributor is what we're here to tell you about today: illegal fishing. 1 out of every 5 pounds of fish are caught illegally, feeding a black market valued at more than $23 billion annually. So now that you're convinced that stronger protections of our ocean are essential, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Nam to introduce you to AI2 and share a story of how nonprofit organizations work together to make thriving ocean a reality.
All right, thanks, Meaghan, for the introduction. So my name's Nam, and I'm from the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, or AI2. AI is in the news a lot lately, and not always for good things. And I'm here to share a story of how AI is making a very, very positive difference in the environmental space, and specifically against this fight against illegal fishing. So I run the Skylight program at AI2, which is focused on this mission. So how can AI help with this problem of illegal fishing? There is a very specific niche, and Meaghan, you can go to the next slide, that AI can play. Specifically, I'm trying to answer the question of where is fishing happening, right? Like, where is it happening? Where is that fishing particularly damaging? Where might it be illegal? And not only that, but making sure that data gets to the people who need it and the people who can do something about it. So Skylight takes all the data that we can find from both mostly public sources, some commercial sources, and tries to create a map of where boats are conducting activities. And then you may or may not know, but there's lots and lots of boats in the water. So our governments today have a lot of data that they have to process to figure out where fishing is happening. And this is a perfect pattern and problem where AI can make a difference. To go to the next slide. What we do is we take all that data, so it comes from ships voluntarily transmitting where they are on a system called AIS. And then we also take satellite imagery that's publicly available and captures boats, even if they don't want to transmit where they are. And we kind of do a math problem. The ones we know, we take out the ones we don't, and we're left with who might not want to be seen. And so in the Skylight product, we're showing essentially where boats are and highlighting when they might be fishing or when they might be doing other important activities to illegal fishing, such as transshipping, so moving fish from one boat to another boat, or refueling fishing vessels out at sea so that they can keep fishing for months and months on end. So that's about Skylight. Without going too far into the weeds, we had a really successful news story that happened in the illegal fishing space a few months ago. And I want to use that example to talk about where technology helps, but also where it plays a very small, humble role. So you can move on to the next slide. So this is a news story that came out in January about 16 boats that were arrested and prosecuted for illegal fishing in a protected area off the coast of Panama. So what happened here in this, and what the news story captured, was that several boats were, specifically long-lining vessels, were working off of a marine protected area in Panama, and they were found to be fishing without authorization. And the Ministry of Environment in the Panamanian government received intelligence from a coalition of nonprofits, as well as from their technologies, including Skylight, where they were able to confirm with more confidence that these were, in fact, fishing vessels and they were, in fact, fishing in the wrong place. Ultimately, this led to an arrest where they actually arrested these vessels. And this was a historical arrest. It was the largest capture against illegal fishing in the history of Panama and its work in marine protected areas. So all of us in the NGO space, but also in the government space in the country of Panama, of course, we're celebrating that. We stopped a case of illegal fishing, that this was amazing, everything worked like it should. But what this news story doesn't really capture is all the work that it took the Panamanian government and took all the actors involved to get to this spot. So on the next slide, you'll see, okay, so we've got this news story. It happened in January 2025. Meaghan, you can keep going. And then going back in time, that coalition of NGOs, they actually started working with Panama much earlier than that. So what they did was they set up kind of a support desk with the Panamanian government, so that if there was ever a time in the future that they needed analytical support, they had this line of communication with NGOs. That line of communication is exactly what the government used to try to request information. So that line of communication had to be set up well before, and it was. And then a different question, even before this, how does the government even know how to use these tools? They had to be provided training. They had to understand how remote sensing data works. And then not only that, but to actually take data from technology and cross it over with legal frameworks and understand how it works with the regulations. So then we go even further back in time. And from here, I'd like to pass it on to Meaghan, because WildAid's one of the main partners who's been working in this region of the Eastern Tropical Pacific for over a decade. And if nothing else, I want to get across from this in this picture that it takes a lot of effort across a scale of years to get to news stories like what you saw in January. All right, over to you, Meaghan.
Thank you, Nam. Okay, so taking it over. Let's talk about WildAid. WildAid is the highest impact wildlife conservation organization that you've never heard of. Tell me I'm wrong. Okay. Um, Today, WildAid works in 20 countries across the globe with a 12 million annual budget. Our approach is simple. We shift, we protect wildlife from critical threats by going to the root of the problem, human behavior, let's be honest, and shifting it. And we leverage our behavior change expertise in two distinct ways. First, with sophisticated mass media communications campaigns, what we call advertising for impact. We use the same marketing strategies as global brands, but we apply them to save wildlife, oceans, and our climate. With this approach, we're reaching millions of people across China, Southeast Asia, Africa, and the United States, inspiring them to stop consuming shark fin, rhino horn, pangolin meat, and to take the bold steps towards climate action and ocean protection. They aren't just public service announcements, they are high impact campaigns that have helped measurably change behavior, reduce demand for wildlife products, and drive conservation outcomes that matter. The second way we leverage our behavior change expertise, why you're here today, is through our globally recognized marine enforcement program. And I do mean globally recognized. To brag on the team for a moment, we won Prince William's Earthshot Prize last year, recognizing our impact. We collaborate with communities, governments, and enforcement teams to build the systems, the capacity needed to ensure that our partners can use amazing systems like Skylight, stop illegal activity, and strengthen the health and the resilience of our seas. Now, why is a non-governmental organization working in law enforcement? First, because we have the expertise. We've worn the uniform. Last time I counted, our team had at least 200 years of collective experience running fish and wildlife enforcement programs. And yes, my maiden name was Mercer, and I will not tell you how long ago that was. Second, we can also both meet partners where they are and stick with them, supporting them for the long term until we're no longer needed. That Ensign Mercer that you saw didn't become ultimately Commander Brosnan without a whole lot of years of mentorship and support and advice and guidance and training. And that is what we support our partners with. That means we start with helping them to design their complete, efficient enforcement system. We began in Panama with that support to the government. We then help them to make that design a reality with honestly, with whatever they need. If they need training support, as the Panamanian government needed, we provide it. If they need tools and technology, we support with that. If they need to bring multiple government agencies together so that they can work together more effectively and build standard operating procedures, we can do that. None of it's sexy, all of it's very, very important. Now, I want to make one point, and this is what really brings it all together. I said complete system, and that term was very deliberate. Every single enforcement system, marine protection system on the ocean must have 5 components in order for it to actually be effective, for those protections to actually be meaningful. Let's start with policies and consequences. That means you need the laws in place, you need the operating policies in place, and if you find an illegal fisher, there actually needs to be a system in place where they get consequences for their actions. Second component, underlying all of this, is that you must have a way to finance it in the long term. Now, that's not only funding coming in, that also means that it needs to be an efficient system built with long-term financial sustainability in mind. There must be training and mentorship programs in place in order to make sure that your people know how to do what they're doing and have that long-term support, where if they come across a scenario that they've never handled before, they have someone that they can call. That can be us. That definitely starts as us. In the long term, our goal is not to be needed, so it becomes regional partners. The community, the regulated community, must be meaningfully engaged and almost act as partners in this enforcement process. Um, that can be everything from an app with a tip line to education and outreach work, or ensuring that the community actually has a say in how their fisheries are being managed. Finally, and this is where AI2 and Skylight comes in with us, each location must have surveillance and enforcement. You have to be able to find and capture the illegal fishers. Now, this can be satellite. And satellites are an incredibly important component of it, especially in such a large area as the Kolla National Park in Panama. It can also be a pair of binoculars, right? It's about, again, remember, we're talking about the properly designed system. We have supported the Panamanian government in each of these components as they're moving forward, to actually ultimately achieve year over year the systems in which government agencies are working together. They have the procedures to communicate with each other. They have the support of the JAC and of AI2 to move forward. They have the vessels and they need. They have the aircraft they need. They have the procedures they need. They know how to gather the evidence. They know how the prosecutors know what they're going for, right? You're bringing in all of those systems together to ultimately have that work. And it works, as that last case demonstrated. I believe that was my last comment. Nam, should I go? I'm not sure if I should go to the last slide now or later, but I like to leave it here because that is the fact that conservation is a team sport is an underlying theme of all of our work. Multiple government agencies, multiple nonprofit partners, uh, multiple supporters. We're all coming together to make these things possible.
Excellent. Well, Meaghan, Nam, I am excited for us to get into the questions and answers. The first thing I'll do, though, is uh, just introduce the people that we've got on the recording. So when I call your name, just wave, and that works just fine. In addition to our speakers, we have from our club, Shags Chagrin in Walnut Creek. We have got guest Alyssa, also with WildAid. And my name is Rushton. I am in San Jose. So to dive right in, and let's go ahead and stop sharing for the moment. Let's kind of jump into the idea of the partnership that exists with governments. So this is a question for you both. Meaghan, you were a Coast Guard commander. Nam, you were the data scientist for the mayor of Seattle, I believe. You've had experience working with governments. What are some concrete examples of how that communication allows WildAid to do what it does in partnership with AI2?
You want to start now?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe just from a technology perspective, I think Meaghan will have a bigger perspective. But from a technology adoption perspective, which is what I had the most experience with, working with a government, you have to be really empathetic to where they're sitting. One, that they've got this huge obligation to the general public. They can't just experiment or try things out the way, might be able to in the private sector. There's also just bureaucracy in general that slows the best of people down, just having to follow the rules, which are there for a reason. It's government's moving slow is something we learned in policy school is for a reason as well. It's to protect the government. But a lot of times also it's definitely a hurdle. And there's this concept of bureaucratic inertia where if you try to introduce something new, it just takes longer for them to adopt it. So all that said, in any space, including conservation, if the government is a key partner that needs to be included, plans for achieving your goals also need to be working on a scale of years. They need to be working with a realistic time frame that it will take some time. And yeah, one kind of practical thing I can share is particularly working with the law enforcement part of governments. Those folks do change a lot, especially when the folks that are actually using the mouse and cursor with your technology, they might rotate out of their position, not because they want to, but because they have to. So building in plans with any kind of technology solution that involves training, retraining, and making sure that knowledge is transferred. So those are just some quick examples of trying to partner with government specifically on tech adoption. But yeah, over to you, Meaghan.
So only thing I'd add to what she already had there was that we can't do our work without partnering with governments, right? Non-governmental organizations have no authority for enforcement, nor am I looking to enforce, in this instance, Panama's laws. We are looking to make Panama's job easier so that they can achieve the vision they have faster. Um, that means that WildAid, our approach, and this is organization-wide across our communications campaigns and our enforcement work, is a fundamentally supportive organization. You're not going to see us coming out and publicly criticizing governments. And that is because that is not our role in the ecosystem of nonprofit work. Our role is to be the trusted partner for those governments so that we can help them achieve those visions. Last point I'm going to make, I get all the time questions asked about, um, well, like, is there actually the political will? What about corruption? You know, um, and the short answer is yes, that absolutely exists. There are ways to uh, identify when that is a likely issue and avoid it, avoid interacting with corrupt individuals whenever possible. Um, but we currently at WildAid, and I am assuming at Skylight as well, have more government partners um, that are interested in engaging with us than we currently have the financial or team capacity to engage with. So there's a whole lot of political will out there of people doing the really, really hard, again, not sexy background work, sitting at the desks to achieve these visions. Um, yeah, and it's a like we stand in a very lucky place where we get to see that firsthand, where I think sometimes the news doesn't really accentuate that.
Well, we're well aware of the weaknesses of the news environment for getting things across properly. Um, Now, in terms of the news that is this powerful kind of moment in January of the Panamanian government being able to make a number of arrests related to the illegal fishing, I'm curious what kinds of challenges there might be in working with governments related to the scale of the illegal fishing that's happening. I mean, I assume this is not just a bunch of, small boat somewhere that's actually far more organized than that. But if I'm wrong, tell me, how does that work on the other side of this equation?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, so illegal fishing, it can go across scales, right? It can be a very small artisanal to the highly industrial. The vessels that our partners were able to seize or, monitor in Panama were absolutely on an industrial scale. They were on an industrial scale, and they were practiced enough in how they chose whether or not to comply with the rules that at first, when the Panamanian government called them and told them that they were fishing in a closed area, they chose to ignore them. Um, there is linkages to transnational organized crime in certain fleets. There are linkage to uh, modern day slavery, as in modern day slaves are operating on many industrial scale fishing vessels around the world. Um, and what all that means, if you're talking about our engagement with governments, is that a single government can't operate alone. It is a transnational problem and therefore needs multiple nations to work together as a solution. This is another area where the Eastern Tropical Pacific, those countries, one of which is Panama, Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, Um, they have actually decided to work together and not only create closed areas that protect vital habitats for sharks, turtles, swimways. There's like a super highway in that region for these things, but also to then try to coordinate on the management and enforcement of those areas across boundaries, um, which is not hard, which is not easy, um, but essential and moving along rapidly, certainly much faster than in some regions of the world. I kind of went away from some of the other transnational, so you good? Okay.
So, in terms of the different countries that you work with, one of the countries is China. And so this really underscores your approach to, hey, our goal is to be effective as opposed to advocate for particular political perspectives.
Mhm.
Tell us more about the relationship with China. I mean, is it an example of a country that comes to you with a different idea of what they're trying to accomplish than does a Panama or an Ecuador or a combination of Eastern Pacific tropical nations?
So we have a very um we have been operating in China for over 20 years. We are a US based nonprofit, you know, legally by all nations laws and oversight operating in China, which means that you are doing so in coordination with a government agency. And we do that in a way where that we are always finding shared goals, shared visions, and enabling them to achieve the environmental leadership that they are pushing forward. So it's a very different narrative than you might hear in the news or even from other organizations. But when it comes down to it, we have found over 2 decades. Alyssa, it's actually 25 years. I might be wrong here. Okay. So for over 25 years of shared environmental leadership conservation goals where we are supporting the Chinese government in achieving their vision. And it's a vision that, of course, also benefits the world. That is not meant to be. Yeah, go ahead, Nam.
But I would just wanted to add that to that complexity of perspectives that there isn't a lot of room for nuance these days sometimes. But even among the community we have that's using Skylight, there's disagreement about the role that the Chinese government is playing in the IU fishing space. And I think one thing that the nonprofit community does, I will say, a bit better than for example, the US government is they do also frame this issue as a food security issue, right? At the end of the day, people are fishing to eat. Someone is also demanding these fish to eat them. So if we talk about this as a food security issue and not a power play between two massive governments and national security issue, you start to like look at everything a little differently. For example, China is also the biggest producer of aquaculture right now, and they're growing more aquaculture farms than any country. So you can see them behaving in a way that supports that they're also trying to feed their own population with fish. So I think it's yeah, I would just add that like within China itself, there's multiple actors. They have their own security departments, and then they have their own folks that are looking at it as a food security issue as well. And same here in the US. And luckily, we can have nonprofits who can work through these different perspectives towards the same issue. But they do have the biggest industrial fleets, so they will keep coming up over and over again, especially in IU fishing stories and cases, because they are the most numerous. Like China does have the biggest, especially distant water fleets.
So one of the things I love about this story is that the partnership allows you to simplify a complex message, that there are all kinds of tricky pieces to how you get this set of actors to work together. I thought the Pentagon image in the slides was particularly helpful in that regard. But along the way, there are going to be moments when something allows for the next step to happen. So clearly, the story of the partnership with Panama is an important one. But getting to that point had to do with the moment of the development of the technology that Skylight does. Nam, talk to us a little bit more about AI and the kinds of brainstorming sessions that might have been a part of your organization saying we can use this particular technology in this way. I'm particularly excited about the kind of work that inspires people to do that kind of brainstorming.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so the Allen Institute for AI is primarily funded by the Allen family and their estate named after Paul Allen, who co-founded Microsoft. Skylight was birthed when he was still alive, and he was personally involved in the concept as well. I think this is me repeating secondhand, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think the general idea was he was as a technology figurehead, he was asking some questions like, why is it that we need to spend so much money sending physical boats out to get data about where boats are and what they're doing? How come on land we've got speed cameras telling you that a car is going too fast, and out on the ocean we're spending tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars just to maybe see a boat doing maybe something weird? There's got to be a way to use satellites to help capture more data, capture more information, and in the best case scenario, maybe even start the enforcement process and to do all this more efficiently. So I think he had just an authentic question about the space looking in from the outside of why does it feel so expensive? And since then, I would say our program has found that his question is it's a good question, and we need to keep asking that to ourselves because we're primarily focused on under-resourced governments. So we're looking not really at the US or Australia or China or New Zealand. We're looking at pretty much all the other coastal states, and to wait for them to get all the boats they need, all the planes they need, wait for them to have all their policy frameworks in place is also unrealistic for how quickly fisheries are collapsing. So WildAid needs to keep doing the work they're doing, as well as the governments themselves. And in the meantime, on the technology side, we're trying to see if we can help leapfrog some of the traditional ways of gathering data, make that part cheaper so that we can meet somewhere in the middle and try to help with fisheries and help fish stocks sooner than the traditional way of doing enforcement and compliance.
Yeah, I'll just say, okay, I'm trying not to date myself, but like I started in the enforcement space when there was no way that satellite information, well, was even open source or could be brought at the cost it is now. And I, over the years, had consistently been told, oh, well, that's an easy, especially from a Silicon Valley perspective, where folks can see a problem and say, that's a very simple solution. Someone will do that. Oh, you need an app that allows you to easily capture the data when you board and inspect a vessel. And it needs to be user-friendly in a developing country context. That's easy. Someone else will develop that. Well, I'm the dumb enforcement officer that was trying to use things, and I can tell you that no one was developing it. And AI2 has developed both of those pieces of equipment that we use. What those tools. Um, it makes the more that these things are developed with that context in mind, um, to be user friendly, to be reliable, it shrinks this huge ocean that's 70% of the earth, and it makes it into small sections where we can know the fish are and where the illegal activity is likely. And it makes all the difference. Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Not so fantastic is that we're running out of time. So I'm going to wind things down. As always, Anyone watching this recording or listening to this podcast, check out the page where you found it to discover how to learn more about these folks, to get involved, support them in some fashion. There are two links, marine.wildaid.org and allenai.org/skylight that are particularly important for you to learn more about the kind of work that is being done through this partnership. All of you who have taken your time to have taken in this recording, thank you so much. We hope that you are inspired by the cool things that are happening throughout the world to make the world a better place, and that you can be involved in these kinds of things through organizations like Rotary and clubs like the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speakers for the final word. So, Meaghan, I think you are going to be handling that message. Feel free to wind us down with whatever you would like for people to have clearly in mind as we finish the recording.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that one of the key components is I want to hear, folks, is that you all have agency. There's a huge way that you each can make a difference in the world. Um, that can go from as simple as asking those questions like, where did my seafood come from? Do you follow a seafood certification process? How do you know it's sustainable? How do you know a slave didn't catch my fish? Right? To following and engaging the conversations. Okay, both AI2 and WildAid have newsletters, a website, social media following. All of our stuff is really cool. It's like stories like the Panama stuff. So, if you need some good news, come. Um, and the last point is less than 1% of philanthropic funding of the world supports oceans. So that's less than 1% of funding goes to the ecosystem that covers 70% of the Earth's surface and provides the daily protein to nearly half of the world's population. So we welcome any and all donations at wildaid.org if you're willing to support us. And we have a contact us area. We are totally, um, we mean it when we say that we want to have a conversation with you. So don't hesitate to just engage and we'll see how we can help each other. And that's it. I really appreciate it. The Rotary Club of Silicon Valley for having us here. Most definitely.
Well, Meaghan, thank you. Nam, thank you. And everyone who has watched or listened to this recording, thank you. We will see you next week.
Bye.